Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Tom Greene Podcast. If you've been following my podcast either on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other of the podcast apps that I have my podcast on, you notice that towards the end of January, I did a little reporter reel on YouTube as well as the podcast apps, showcasing the top 5 moments I felt were the best from 2018 from the Tom Greene Podcast. Now I'm going to do another reel of me with the top 5 moments from the first 3 months of 2019, showcasing some of my best reports to broadcasters and networks across the country and perhaps across the world. Included in my top 5 moments are an interview with Meredith Gorman from the New England Patriots, an interview with Alex Dewitt, a personal friend who is a LA Rams fan, an interview with Andy Mitz from the Rock Chalk Podcast, an interview with Johnnie Black and Matt Bishop from the Scorecrow, showcasing MLB, and an interview with Josh Linke from the Zagaholic Podcast. I hope you all enjoy the top 5 moments of the first 3 months of 2019. And for professional reporters, this now goes to an audio podcast or telecast. However, I wanted to also showcase that yes, I do reports also on video as well. Enjoy. What inspired you to work in the sports organization, work for the Patriots in the Boston sports media?
Well, it goes back to when I was in college. I was at Northeastern, and I knew I wanted to work in reporting. I knew I wanted to work in sports journalism. I knew it was super competitive, and I think that the only way that I was going to be able to decide if I wanted to do it or not was to try and intern places, see if I liked it. I ended up falling in love with it, and the rest is kind of history, and I've been in Boston on and off ever since, and hey, it hasn't steered me wrong, and I've been pretty blessed to be able to work for the Patriots and cover the Patriots for the past couple years. So, it was a little bit of luck, a lot of hard work, and a lot of not taking no for an answer or not letting rejection stop me from trying to reach my dream career. And for you say, oh, I'm working at Kroger right now, but I think you're doing whatever you can to get into the business, and hey, you gotta get some kind of income somehow. So I think you're doing everything right.
Exactly, and I appreciate it. And something I'll say is, believe it or not, your first game, I did notice that you had worked in Detroit for your first game against the Patriots. Well, I didn't know you at the time, but it was at that game, and that's kind of when I got one of the big rejections from the show was from Tori, because I tried to work with her for Michigan, Florida, and unfortunately her schedule just didn't work out, and that was kind of the first big rejection. And I decided to, turn to other guests, turn to other people, and not be afraid to go solo on it. So that was kind of the thing that started to fuel me to keep doing this show. So like you said, somebody says no sometime, and we can't let that stop us. You gotta let it fuel you. As Jim Harbaugh said, and like I said, I'm a Michigan fan. As Jim Harbaugh said after the loss to Michigan State in 2017, it just adds fuel to the fire.
Absolutely, and I think that whether it's trying to get a TV job and sending your reel out to hundreds of TV stations and getting a bunch of rejections, or trying to set up a meeting with someone and getting rejected, all it takes is that one yes. And for me, that one yes was what I needed to start my career when I was first graduating college and looking for my first on-air job. And I took an unconventional route. I worked at a newspaper. The editor-in-chief was willing to take a chance on me. I was pretty green at being on air. I had only ever really worked in sports production. And that one yes, it was an unconventional route, but that one yes propelled me, and it was a great opportunity, and it got me to where I am today. And of course, I still want to keep going. I'm not where I want to be, necessarily in terms of, reaching my full career dream one day, but these small yeses have to keep propelling you, because you're going to get a lot of no's in this industry.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is this podcast is also affiliated with a small group called 3 Point Stance Magazine, and Brandon Rush and Jeff Lyons saw my talent on my Tom TV 23 Twitter and said, "You want to do a podcast?" I said yes, and now three through 2.5 seasons later, here I am with a laptop with a professional guest on the show recording something special. So it's, like I said, just adding fuel to the fire. So another question I'll ask before we get to the championship previews are, do you have any advice for those like me, or for those that are listening and want to start their own podcast or work in sports? For those people, any advice?
Yeah, so the advice that I would give is do whatever it takes to get your foot in the door somewhere. So for me, I'm just going to give some example of what I did in college, basically. I'm going to say I paid for college myself, so I took out loans. By no means did I have really the financial budget to do this, but I had an opportunity to fly myself down from Boston to the SEC football game of the week on CBS. The production coordinator said, hey, we'd love to have you work as a production runner for us, basically. You're doing everything. You're bringing the sideline reporter water. You're taking out the trash out of the production trucks. You're answering the phones in the trucks when the PR people call with injury updates. You're basically, the very bottom of the totem pole. But for me, I looked at that as, this is a rare opportunity. Somebody said, yes, here, you can do this. And for me, I looked at it as, all right, I want to get my foot in the door at CBS. This could be a good way for me to do it. So, I looked at my bank account. There wasn't much money in there to afford flights down south every weekend. So after I was done with classes at Northeastern every day, I would go and I would waitress at a little bar restaurant in downtown Boston, and I would save that money, and I would use it to pay for my flight down to work the SEC game of the week. And it was a small role, but I took full ownership in that role, and I kept my eyes on my long-term goal, and I was like, I'm going to use this to network, absorb this experience as much as I can, and hopefully there'll be a return on investment. My mom was like, Meredith, you're crazy. Like, you're wasting money. Like, I wasn't breaking even when I was getting paid at the end of these weekends, but in my head, I was like, Mom, you might think I'm crazy, but I have a goal here, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. So long story short, at the end of the football season, the producer had noticed, and he said, Meredith, that's kind of cool that you're coming all the way from Boston to work these games. And when it all came together at the end, I ended up getting an internship or a co-op at Northeastern, as they're called, in production at CBS Sports. And I lived in New York City for about 7 months or 8 months working as an intern. And then I ended up working full-time as a features production assistant at CBS Sports Network before going back to Northeastern to finish my last semester of school. But, once I got back to Boston, it was just trying to get my foot in the door anywhere. And if it was logging game footage or, just doing kind of tasks that weren't on camera necessarily, I looked at it as a way to network. And I think that in this industry, when you network and you're doing exactly what you are even doing, just reaching out to people. But when you grow your network, people are always willing to help you, and everybody knows somebody that might be able to help you. And it's just being exposed to these people and being in an environment where you're able to continue to, meet people that, who knows, they might hire you down the line. So I think it's just trying to find a crack, in the door somewhere that you can squeeze your foot in, and also looking at unconventional ways to get into the industry. Like for me, I thought I would end up in a small market right out of Northeastern, working in local news at a TV station, and I didn't get a job at any of those places. And I remember when I was in college, I had been doing a paper, and I met with the editor-in-chief at the Boston Herald, and he was like, keep in touch, whatever. And so as I started looking for a job a few months later, I reached out to him. I didn't think there was any opportunity for me there because it was a newspaper and I didn't really know if I wanted to write and it wasn't on camera or whatever. But I reached out to him. He ended up hiring me as an editorial assistant. And he was like, but I promise you will be able to do some stuff on camera. Again, I was writing obituaries and stuff, but he let me go on camera here and there. and he was open to any ideas I had because they were trying to grow their digital presence. I kept asking every day, can I cover like the Patriots practice? Can I cover OTAs for the Patriots? Can I cover minicamp? And eventually, when a reporter left, they hired me full-time as a multimedia reporter, and I got to cover basically all the sports in Boston and be on camera every single day. And it all was because I saw a little opportunity in the door that wasn't even what I wanted to do, but I turned it into something more. So my advice for anybody in the industry is that trying to get into the industry is look for unconventional routes. Just reach out to everybody you possibly can. Be willing to do, tasks that aren't necessarily your dream job that you want to do, but just be places where you're going to be able to meet people and never give up.
My perspective, too, the NFL has Pepsi as one of its main brands. The Super Bowl is in Atlanta. And you already said, what's in Atlanta? What kind of rivalry is going on between Pepsi and Coke in downtown Atlanta?
Well, I can tell you from the people that I've talked to who are from there or have lived there in the past, it doesn't matter what Pepsi does, they're loyal to the red.
and I'm not too surprised by that. As fun fact, RC was actually made in Atlanta as well as Coke. But of course, RC is a cola that has not really been heard of, and everybody knows about Coke. So, the world of Coke.
Good for mixing, so I hear.
Pollock to the Dodgers.
I think it's a good deal. Pollock. The whole thing with Pollock is his health.
Fish is good for you.
I'm sorry?
Fish is good for you. We're talking Pollock.
I think there's better fish than Pollock. But,
That's very true.
We should bring back Tim Salmon.
Yeah, there we go. Fish in Anaheim. We fishing out here on the West Coast.
Wait, well, you got trout in Anaheim.
That's true.
So, but anyway, all right, I digress. Anyway, Pollock is good when he plays. I mean, he's an excellent player when he plays. But the problem is that he hasn't gotten over 425 plate appearances in the past 3 years. And he only had one season over 140 games played. And that was his big year when he had 20 home runs and 39 steals, batted .315. Everyone thinks that's the player Pollock is. But we have to remember something. He was 27 when he did that. It was 4 years 2015. And he hasn't been a model of health since. I think the 4 years is a little long, in my opinion, for a 31-year-old with health issues. But if he is healthy for the next couple of years at least, and produces, gets back to the 2015 form, he'll look like a steal. Because he's definitely one of the best center fielders in baseball when he's healthy. Fielding-wise, he can run. He's got some pop. So you're getting a great all-around player. Like I said, it's just a matter of can he stay healthy and be on the field for 140 games. That'll determine whether this contract was worth it or not.
Definitely. Matt, your thoughts on Pollock?
I agree with Johnny 100%. I can't believe the Dodgers would pay this guy and they give him a 4-year deal. And LeMahieu gets a 2 and Brian Dozier gets a 1. I know this guy, he's the powers and speed combo is real here. Like Johnny said, 2015 hit .315, 39 stolen bases with 20 home runs. But he hasn't hit over 266 since that 2015 season. He hasn't come anywhere near that mark. The 466 plate appearances is the most that he's had since 2015. So, this guy's a former power speed guy. And unfortunately, in this MLB climate, these speed guys, they tend to wear down a little bit quicker than most, than guys that don't run. I don't like this signing for the Dodgers. I mean, I think that he's going to get you 20, 25 home runs a season, but, he's not going to hit you anywhere near 300 average. I don't like this for the Dodgers, and I think 4 years is a little bit sturdy, a little bit steep for him. Like I said, as opposed to some of these guys that are only getting 1 and 2 year deals. So there's definitely value there for this Dodgers team who's looking to get back in the World Series, and I think he's a veteran presence in that clubhouse that can definitely lead those guys. But I don't think it's a very smart signing for the Dodgers, just in my opinion.
As for my thoughts on Pollock, I pretty much said it a few minutes ago. Fish is good, but there are better fish than Pollock. And I kind of think that way about A.J. Pollock. I mean, 4 years, $60 million, that's a long commitment for someone who's like we said, who's 31. But in 2015, he hit 315 with 367, 498, 20 homers, and 39 steals. So he's proven that he can be good. It's like the seafood buffet. If you're looking for all you can eat, you'll take Pollock. If you're looking for a nice Friday night dinner, you're looking for perch, at least in my opinion. So, is this the greatest signing that the Dodgers have had? Not really, but it works.
What happened?
So moving on to our last one, not the Pac-12, but the American Athletic Conference. And I shall ask you, do you like tacos?
Yes, I do like tacos.
Well, then you will like who I have in the championship game in this American Athletic Conference, and that is UCF in Taco Fall.
Yeah, I'm actually pulling up the bracket right now. I haven't looked too much at this one. Honestly, when you were talking about all the major conferences, I thought we were going to go Big East instead of the American, but you gave me enough heads up before the show that I at least kind of browsed it a little bit. You know, I do think I'm just going to run through my picks for each of these games. Sure. I do think it's going to be mostly chalk. The first round, I don't see anyone upsetting. I do think that South Florida will potentially give Houston a game, but I do see Houston winning that game. UCF, I agree that they're going to go ahead and move on. Again, I think Tulsa will give Cincinnati a game, but Cincinnati's too good to move on. I do think that Wichita State will upset Temple. And then Cincinnati, I have Cincinnati over Wichita State. I actually agree with you. I think that UCF is going to upset Houston. Houston has unfortunately faded a little bit down the stretch. They are still going to get a very high seed, but they've pretty much lost any opportunity to be able to even get a 2 or even potentially a 3. With the way that they faded down the stretch, and so I think that they're going to end up losing this game to UCF, and then they're going to go ahead. I honestly think Houston's going to end up with probably a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. I think I have Cincinnati against UCF in the championship. I think I have to agree with you. I think that UCF is probably the best, the best poised right now to be able to go on a run in this conference tournament and really give themselves a good shot at a decent seed. I actually have UCF going ahead and winning this championship.
The Gonzaga Bulldogs. They're a major college basketball team playing in a mid-major conference. What do you think if they were to ever go to the Pac-12? Would you like that?
We have actually been having a debate with Washington State Cougar fans over the last day and a half about this, and I honestly don't think we would even go to the Pac-12 because I don't think the Pac-12 would make the kind of concessions that we would need to be able to make it worth our while. Okay. And a lot of people would be kind of like, well, why wouldn't you do that? It's better competition, whatever. The WCC was actually up significantly this year. A lot of people don't realize that we were right there in adjusted efficiency with the Pac-12. I think we were like 8th in the nation, and they were 7th in the nation out of conferences. I'm not saying the Pac-12 is always that down and we're always that up, but I do see kind of some movement on the horizon. Peppernine's improving. San Francisco, even though they just lost their coach, they're building new facilities. St. Mary's, obviously, with Randy Bennett. BYU, obviously, they lost their coach, but their program's always around. I think that for us, we make so much money in the WCC right now. We're on par with every we actually out-earn every Pac-12 team except for Arizona in revenue. And, I don't see really any huge reason why we have to move other than that, if the power conference teams all move to a 20-game schedule, freezes out some of the scheduling of the non-conference that we could have. But, a lot of teams are willing to play us home and home. North Carolina's coming to the Kennel next year. We played Michigan State at the Kennel in the past. It's not out of the realm of possibility that we're going to keep able to get those games. So, and obviously we have the formula in place to be able to get those top seeds or higher seeds in the tournament, even with the conference we're in.
Yeah, and my opinion was I always thought that Gonzaga was a major team that stole a mid-majors bid, and that was the reason why I would want them to move to a major conference. But I mean, it all comes down to what you're talking about: revenue and conference scheduling. That's really where the game is played /won.